Okay, I'm going to do one last inspection here, and this may show before all this has been done, just for convenience sake. I'm going to inspect all the parts again and make sure that we don't have any issues. Okay, this is our valve body. We're going to separate it again because we're going to start putting it together. Well, real quick, we'll check this again. Again, rub your finger where the needle bearing runs on this guy, on the neck. This outside here, this is where your steering shaft attaches. That's not too critical, unless it's chipped or busted off or something. We're gonna real carefully along the ring lands here. Just make sure there's no raised burrs. If there are, we need to knock them down. There isn't, so we're in good shape. Here's where those check balls run. And we can, again, searching for burrs, just run your finger through there like that as you spin it. And it seems to be quite good. So this should be fine. GoPro, stop recording. So I'm going to re-inspect this to make sure I didn't nick it in the process. Right here I have a small nick. I can show you how to fix that, or how to address that. I have a file here, and you can very carefully identify that nick is right here. I don't know if it's visible. It's right there at the end of the file. Take the finest part of the file and very gently deburr it. And if you just keep running your finger across it, you'll see when it stops catching your finger. Smooth again. Okay. These things happen. And just check all the surfaces for burrs. You'll feel them spinning this in your hand like that. I think I feel something. Maybe not. Okay, I think we're pretty good. We can do that again for the heck of it. This is where that pitman arm needle bearing roll runs. If you run your finger across here and it catches your fingernail, then this is bad. You have to get rid of it and get yourself a new bearing in the case as well. And we can check these again. Just to, you know, the finger inspection works. If your nail would drag, you'd have an issue. Mine doesn't, so it's in good shape. Here we're another mating surface. All right, so that stuff seems pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to take this cap back off here again really quick. Notice you can see that they call that a witness mark. That's a new term by me, to be honest. This is about where that cap was down to. It does rub ever so slightly. These two surfaces aren't, you know, they're very close to each other. But you're going to rub your finger across here and see if you feel any grooves. I don't feel anything. You can also run around like that. Here's the teeth. I'm going to try both sides with my finger. One side and then the other side. I think this is normal. That looks like a machine mark from when they manufactured it. That all seems fine. Now, here's where the other bearing rides. That's the bearing inside the case right here at the end of my Band-Aid, right? And so we want to check that surface as well and see if you feel anything. You can kind of maybe see where the bearing rode. You got a couple shiny spots there. Run your fingernail, see if it catches anywhere. It doesn't, seems fine. These are the teeth that bite into the pitman arm to hold it. The splines, whatever you call them, to mate with the pitman arm. Run your finger across those and see if they're bad. If there's any issue, you can take a metal wheel and tape this really good up here, right? And down here, and you can run that metal wheel where say you got a tooth that's maybe bent out a little bit. You can maybe try and work that back in. You won't go in with that, tap it with like a screwdriver or something, just so it can be straight and you can get the new one on there, the new pitman arm. But this seems to be a good pitman shaft. So I'm doing a little extra credit here. This still has some staining on it, and it had some scuff marks on it right here. I don't know if that's showing up on camera. So this is 800 grit sandpaper. You can do this with 600 and work your way up to 1000 or what have you, but there's no bearing riding on here or anything, so it's not too critical. Typically you'd also use a shoelace and do this thing. I suppose we could demonstrate that on the shaft really quick, even though the shaft is pretty well fine. I'm just kind of lightly polishing this, and I'm being really quick and dirty about it. You can wet this down a bit because this is wet dry sandpaper, so you can wet it so it's a little more effective in sanding. But this shouldn't hurt anything. It should just extra credit, that's all. In just a moment I'll show you how to do that if you had to. GoPro, stop recording. Okay, so this is where the bearing rides right here. You can see this little shiny spot here and here. Mine's in pretty good shape. I can run my finger across it. It doesn't catch or anything. I'm going to cut a piece of this 800 grit sandpaper. If you really needed to do this, you probably want to work up to 1200 or something like that. So it's like a mirror shine. And it should be enough to slide all the way around. Then typically you'll use like a shoelace. I don't have one around, so I'm just going to use this zip tie. And then you work it like this with the zip tie. I don't know if you can see that. It's not wanting to spin too well, but also you can wet this down a little bit, and you just for a while. And you can switch to a little finer sandpaper. It should look like a mirror finish when you're done, and that will that'll just help things out a little bit. It's a bit more extra credit. Okay, so I wet this down. I'm going to hit it a little bit more with the 800. See if this slides a bit better. Whoops. It's a lot easier with a shoelace. Also be easier if I had a vise, but I don't have a shop vise. You didn't see this. So it's starting to shine up even better than it was before. You don't need to do a lot. It just, I've sanded this, I don't know what this is, tool steel, or it's hardened steel. You could sand on this for the next year and you'd hardly make a dent in it. It just polishes it, really. So a little bit there, and that's even better than it was before. So as you notice, I just got this wet, and a lot of these parts, certain things I don't think of right away. A lot of these parts I will hit with a little oil. This is just WD-40. You can use old power steering fluid or what have you, just to protect them so they don't rust. I don't know what environment you're in, but it's not a bad idea to do this, especially if you're not going to assemble it right away. And then I save my old, I'm super cheapskate, right? I saved my old Ziploc bags. I don't know where the one went for this. How did it, here it is, I believe. I have some other stuff in here, but I will take the part and stick it in a Ziploc bag. And if I'm especially worried, I'll saturate this in, say, ATF, automatic transmission fluid or something, recycled. I save my old, close it up, and this will last forever that way. It's just a little tip as you're assembling things, if you can't put them back together right away. You probably saw me do this the other day. I didn't have the actual seal, and now I ordered another kit, so I have a seal for it. I don't know why I was short this seal. For some reason, the other kit didn't seem to have it, or I honestly, God, don't know. Another thing I'm gonna brace you for when you do this, put this on here really quick. The instructions that come in these packages, this really threw me for a curve. They're for a rack and pinion. I don't know why they don't have one for a gearbox for a rack and pinion. So they must use the same seals. Might as well get this extra assembly lube on there. Put that together. I love that assembly lube, and if you're looking to save some money, it's just Vaseline with food coloring in it. You don't necessarily need the colorant. It's just to let you know where you have assembled things. So I'll put this back into the bag here and set that aside for when we do assemble. I ran into a setback the other day, and we'll go over that here in just a second. I found my little flashlight here. Just as I start the camera, I forget it. Now we can look in here, and there's not too much critical here. This bearing, I don't know if you can see that. This bearing in here, needle bearing, rides on the pitman shaft there. Otherwise, this whole shaft is just kind of spanning the bore here. Right there. Here we have a little flash rust, and you can see this green spot where the O-ring had sat before. I may take that and clean that up with a Scotch-Brite. Let's see here really quick. Okay, I got one right here. So I've mostly cleaned that bore up there. The reason I was concerned about that is I want that O-ring to seat real good here and not have any issues with dirt or grime, not letting it seal up. Now we have the inside of the bore here. Be very, very careful, especially around this edge here. I don't know if you can see that. My light is kind of shining up. There's an edge. These machined edges in here can be extremely sharp, but what we want to do is just ever so gently feel if there's any issue with the bore, especially at the end here. And there doesn't seem to be. This isn't critical here. The surface here, this is just what holds the valve body in with that snap ring. Now what I'm gonna do is here, actually do have gloves. These are way better than mechanic gloves. These are chemical gloves, and you don't have to throw them away. They're like heavy duty kitchen gloves. I'm going to take, I don't know if you noticed that, this is that kerosene that I used to clean things with. I poured the excess into my cup with the check balls because those love to get dirty. And I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna clean up the little bit of mess I made here before I reassemble this guy. Kerosene is just a really cheap, and it's not too harsh of a solvent to clean things with. So there we go. That should be sufficient. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's inspected, and I think that guy's good to go. So this is our valve head, cylinder head, I guess, and our chamber, whatever you want to call it. And I'm gonna run my finger around that guy and make sure he's okay, and I think he's fine. So just so you know, your finger does measure things very well, and that seems fine. There's the teeth that engage the pitman shaft, the teeth on the pitman shaft, which is right here. Let's inspect this really quick. We have here, just gently rub your finger across it. And it should be perceivably smooth. Now, your finger will feel the absolute most minute differences and catch if there's an issue here. If you feel anything, it's not perfectly smooth, then this is worn out. Another thing you can do is rub your fingernail across it. If it catches anywhere, you have an issue. We're going to do that as well with the end of the piston. Run our finger around it, See if we can't feel anything. If you have like a little raised piece right here, you can deburr it, which I show at one point how to deburr stuff. This is a very fine file. You can take the little burr off and knock that down so it doesn't score the mating surface. Let's take this off here. This is our tape we're sizing the Teflon ring on the piston with. So we can take that off now. You know, they say you only need to size the Teflon seal for about 10 minutes or so, and then it should take the shape of the new, it should resize itself. Now I'm gonna run my finger around here. Again, I'm trying to feel any burrs or bumps or things that could be a potential issue here. Now you can also run your fingernail. And really the only major issue here would be is if you have like a cut through here that would bleed pressure, because this seals up, especially this end here. This seals up with the other end. I guess it's got the Teflon seal, so that might not even be a big deal if there's a cut there, so long as the Teflon seal was good. And I don't see any issue here. This side is just nothing. I think when they machined this, they just did it all the way around, and that's why we have those cuts there. These are where this splines with the pinion shaft. And I adjusted mine fiddling around before I decided to rebuild it. And I put it too far down in. So there is an inconsequential, just a very minute groove on all of these. And honestly, it may be this piston is shot. I don't know if this will be a really big deal or not. There's a fluid film that goes between here and the pinion shaft teeth. That is the more critical part. However, I would like to try and smooth that out a little bit. So I have a piece of 400 grit sandpaper here, and I'm going to try to buff that up just a bit. I don't know, like I said, probably nothing can be done about it. You have to sand on this for a year to do anything. And honestly, it probably won't even hurt anything. It'll just seep back up. If anything, this may promote that the parts to seat a little bit better together. I don't know. This isn't too bad out here. It's this one right there, and this one here, and probably on the other side. This side's, well, right here we got it. That's pretty bad there. Yeah, so be careful with how deep you put in the pitman shaft by adjusting that nut on top there. This is probably about all I can do is just hit these really quick. I did try fitting a rotary tool in here to buff this with a Scotch-Brite disc, but that just wasn't really going to work. Yeah, there's pretty well nothing I can do for that. So we're going to move on to the, I'm going to cross my fingers. Hopefully you don't have, you didn't make the mistake I did. This is a little bit harder gearbox to find at the salvage yard and get another piston like this. And I couldn't find one on the internet for sale. So just the piston, that is. Otherwise, it's quite expensive for a rebuild or for especially for a factory OEM part, the Delphi part.